Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
Welcome back to Bengals on the Brain. This is episode 130, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry. The Bengals are on a bye week, and this is the bye week episode where you self-scout, you reflect, you look maybe a little bit into the future, as the bye week didn't go the way it could have gone. We needed the Raiders to pull off the upset against the Denver Broncos. That did not happen. The Bengals are in a tough situation. Not only is it the Broncos, the Chargers, the Steelers, who did lose, which, okay, we'll see how that division goes. We'll see what that looks like for Pittsburgh at the end. There's a chance things aren't as great there if they're not good on offense. But the Dolphins seem to be scoring again with Tua back at quarterback, scoring 30 points a game. And that means they've got a shot to climb into this AFC race and maybe make some noise at the end there. We still have 6 games to go. The season is not over technically, but it is stacked against your Cincinnati Bengals with about a 14% chance to make the playoffs. So with that brings a lot of big picture questions, evaluation questions on players, on coaches, on the organization, some reflecting, some projecting, some looking into the future while looking back in the past and trying to learn from our mistakes. And I took to Twitter to ask, what's on your mind and what can we look at during the bye week? Things that I could discuss on here. And we're going to hit up those questions, mailbag sort of, and go through it. And these are the questions I like. A lot of them are very player evaluation focused, which is my wheelhouse. And don't forget, we've got the Jake and Joe postgame show after this weekend's Steelers-Bengals game, a very late Steelers-Bengals game's first one of the season. Do the Bengals get back into it? Do the ping pong tables make a difference? Well, I'll tell you what may make a difference for you. It's the chance that First Star is giving away and a chance for you to win a signed Ja'Marr Chase football. So go on to Twitter, on X, find First Star Log, find at Joe Goodberry. You're going to want to follow Dave Lapham. You're going to follow Jake Lisco. And if you retweet that tweet, that gets you a chance to win a football. If you follow the show and watch the show afterwards, after the Bengals game, put in the hashtag, whatever it's going to be. Let's say Ja'Marr Chase game-winning touchdown. Probably won't be that long, but let's say. You type that in while the show's going on, you've got another chance to win a Ja'Marr Chase signed football. So, without carrying on too long, let's get into some of these questions and let's discuss what's on your mind. First question is something I get asked pretty often lately, as the Bengals haven't been able to replace the free safety spot and replicate Jesse Bates' production. Now with Geno Stone playing that role, but it comes from Bengals Zach. Is Tyson Anderson worth giving a look at free safety? And that's, generally I got that by a few people, but I brought up Zach's question because he's a subscriber on Twitter. So shout out and thank you for that. But I looked at some data on Tyson Anderson just to see. Remember, he's a 5th round pick out of Toledo. The Bengals moved up to get him. And I would say so far, he's been a great special teamer. He's one of the best special teams players in the league. I would say, even go as far to say, you should vote for him for the Pro Bowl. Maybe you're the type of Bengals fans that's going to vote for every single Bengals player for the Pro Bowl. That's fine. But if you're not, and you wonder who's really worth it, Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, Trey Hendrickson, and Tyson Anderson is worthy of a Pro Bowl nomination, worthy of your vote. But does that mean he should play free safety? Well, he's a great athlete. We know that. Maybe the injuries have taken something from him. Doesn't look like it on special teams. Still one of the fastest, quickest guys down there. But looking at some of his data, he's played 1 snap in his NFL career on the defensive side of the ball. He's played a ton on special teams, but 1 snap. So what has he done in the preseason? Well, he has done very well, allowing 1 catch on 5 targets, intercepting 2 passes. He's made some splash plays, and that wasn't his specialty coming out of Toledo. If you go back to Toledo and look at him, he mostly played in the slot, in the box, as a box safety, rarely ever playing the free safety spot. Well, he did it, but it wasn't, that wasn't his area of expertise, I would say, at all. So to wonder if he should play the free safety spot, I don't know. Maybe he should play the strong safety spot if we're really looking at this. But he didn't do great in coverage. He never really graded great from PFF either. Didn't get his hands on the ball a ton. He allowed more touchdowns than he had interceptions. Usually not a good sign of a guy that is is going to be a playmaker in the NFL, but in preseason he has, and in special teams he has, and he's an athlete. So maybe, I'm not totally against it. I'm just saying I wonder why. If you're wondering why he hasn't played yet or given a look yet, that's probably why. They probably just see him as a special teamer, and sometimes those guys turn out to be starters down the line for other teams because teams didn't respect it and were thinking, inside the box a little bit too much of how they evaluated the player. So I'm with you. You can't do much worse at safety. Let me see Jordan Battle. Let me see Tyson Anderson. Let me see Dejon Anthony. So fair question. Next one up. This one from Brady Bailey, and he asks, what do we attribute to the lack of defensive line development? And should we point fingers at Marion Hobby? And should the Bengals look for a new defensive line coach, to paraphrase? Well, that's a fair question as we look into some of these coaches, and that'll be a big question and evaluation over the final 6 weeks of this season. One of the big evaluations is, what is Myles Murphy, right? What is Joseph Osai? Both players should have been, well, at least Joseph Osai I liked much more as a prospect than Myles Murphy in terms of his pro projection. And he never, we're here, we're at the end, we're at 6 games left in week 4, and I know he's had injuries, but they've never been able to turn him up a notch in any level of his game. He's no better than he was as a prospect coming out, and he's still very young. But there are other players, right? Zach Carter, Tyler Shelvin, Cam Sample maybe got a half a step in his development, but you should expect that at the bare minimum. Jeffrey Gunter, late round picks, right? We'll see what happens with Cedric Johnson. We'll see what happens with Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson. But there's been enough picks at this point to wonder on the defensive line if Marion Hobby is the right guy to develop these. And we're going to talk about development a lot. Number one, you need to draft good prospects, right? I never thought Tyler Shelvin was good. I had hopes that Zach Carter can maybe be a role player. Cam Sample hoped he could be a role player. I think he was. Maybe we'll see him back with the team next year. Joseph Osai I thought would be good. Myles Murphy, not sure. He's a flip of a coin guy, high boomer bust. And we don't know yet. So I'm with you in questioning the development and putting my focus on Hobby. I'm putting my focus on a lot of position coaches that aren't developing these guys in a positive manner. What happened to safety play since Jesse Bates left? And now that there's a new safety coach, what happened to the defensive line play when you don't have veterans like Sam Hubbard and BJ Hill and Larry Ogunjobi and DJ Reader and Trey Hendrickson, only drafting one of those guys being Sam Hubbard. The rest were all free agents. So you didn't develop them. You got the best out of quite a few of those guys. Ogunjobi got a new contract. BJ Hill got a new contract. Trey Hendrickson has turned into a perennial Pro Bowler. DJ Reader has become a household name with the Bengals until he moved on, of course. But so there's credit there for Hobby, but this team needs their draft picks to develop and hit, or else this organization cannot overcome that. They're not built to overcome that. Not many are, but this team and this organization especially struggles there. So then I start looking at other positions too, is, what are we doing at offensive line with Frank Pollock? And we'll get there. There's other questions. But yeah, how hard is it to move a position coach? Not hard at all. I think you can find these guys out there. I think the Bengals have done it. I think it's a mark of a coach, a head coach. Can you find assistants to fit your scheme to get what you're trying to accomplish and get it done? And so far, I think Taylor has done that. We've seen coaches move on to bigger jobs. We've seen guys get promoted, interest around the league. So that's a good thing. And maybe Taylor can find these guys if he's still here. But that's a fair question. And defensive line development over these last 6 weeks, probably something we're going to be reviewing very often, which if you didn't check the last episode of Bengals on the Brain presented by First Star Logistics, you're going to want to check that out. Focused on McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins a whole bunch. Myles Murphy is going to be a big part of that evaluation. Can he be a starter in 2025? Because they're probably going to need him to. Moving on to the next one. This is from Matt 921, with the Bengals being 4-7 and losing a lot of one-score close games that they probably could have and should have and maybe could have won. Where do we put the blame? Where do I? And then I'm going to front office players, talent, coaching staff. I'm going to open this to the floor for the comments section here on YouTube. Leave your comment there. Where do you mostly put the blame? I wonder what people say here. Do they say coaching more? I want to put a poll up at the end of the season and see what it is. I'll give you my take on it because it's probably a mix of everything, right? I think there's major coaching issues. I think your run game stinks. I think your your O-line stinks, right? You continue to have the same issues you've had for years. Zach Taylor's always had a poor grading and ranking and run scheme. It didn't matter if it was Jim Turner or Frank Pollock. Starting to think it's Zach because these guys have been able to coach in other places, not Jim Turner. I was never a fan, but Frank Pollock has been able to. You got to marry the schemes. You got to figure that out. So I do put a lot of it on that. I do put some on special teams. I mean, Evan McPherson, when you play at this level and the team wins games, and you play at this level, the team's not going to win games when the margin of error are one-score games. Very, very close. Can't have that. The defense dropping off completely. I think that's drafting. I think that's player acquisition, whether that's Geno Stone, bringing back Von Bell, Sheldon Rankins. I think sometimes you sign a guy. I think with Rankins and Geno Stone, sometimes you sign a guy and they just don't work. They got bit twice on that. That sucks. It happens. But you kind of made that bed when you've been missing on draft picks, when you made picks at defensive tackle and they haven't worked out. You kind of got to go sign a guy like that. When you make picks at safety and then you don't keep them at safety when Dax Hill and you don't plan on playing Jordan Battle for whatever reason, well, now I'm forced to go out and get a safety. When I drafted a good one of the best in the league, should have kept him. So that's on personnel, right? Talent acquisition is personnel, front office. Not keeping your good players and inadequately replacing them. I think they lack talent, so I don't deny that. I think the players on the field, many of them are not good enough to be in the roles they're in. And we've talked about them plenty of times. Guys that shouldn't be playing. When they started the year with Zach Carter playing the most snaps of all defensive tackles by the time he was cut. Not ideal. Didn't make a team right after that. Jackson Carman didn't make a team. You can't be in camp with these guys when it's clear they're not good enough. So we've got coaching, we've got talent that are questions. Front office, player acquisition, questions about how they handled everything. And then the vibes were off. I tend to put that on the front office, on the talent acquisition. This is why I'm going to lean. If it was like 25% coaching, 25% talent, I'm going 50% front office. So I hope you made your comment already, and I'm not spoiling it on you. You haven't drafted well. You haven't drafted well at all, and it's been too long. You had good drafts in 2020 and 2021. Get drafts back-to-back that are good. And I say it's good because you got Jamar Chase, right? And you got Evan McPherson. Those guys helped propel you that year. It sucked when you took Jackson Carman right away. I liked the Joseph Osai pick. There was nothing wrong with it. That is a fine process. I got a project coming up for you guys that'll show you what I'm talking about. But 2020 was great. Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Logan Wilson. I mean, you start a draft like that, you're going to do pretty good. And even the year before, I mean, you get Jermaine Pratt. And you know what? You can go back. You can have some of those drafts that are a B-level draft. When you start getting C and D-level drafts, the guys that aren't contributing anymore, when you're not coaching these guys up, when you allow Cam Taylor Britt to go from a B player to a D player, it's a problem. Can't have that. We'll talk about Cam Taylor Britt soon. So I'm putting 50% on the front office. And the part I was trying to get to was the vibes were off this year. When you don't extend Jamar Chase, right? Players feel like you jerked around your best player or second best player. When the best defensive player, Trey Hendrickson, requests a trade. When T. Higgins requests a trade. 3 of your stars that I said were to vote for the Pro Bowl, your 3 guys, core players that aren't special teamers, should vote for the Pro Bowl. Oh, no, that was Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson. So I'm wrong. T, Jamar, and Trey. Those 3 core players, 3 of your top 5 players, were discouraged, were upset, were not happy in the offseason. That's not what you want. You want vibes to be good? That's how you kill it right there. And you let DJ Reader go. You let Jesse Bates go. You don't go out and get a big free agent 2 years in a row. You ask Joe Mixon to take a pay cut. He does. You don't spend the money. Yeah, and then you trade Joe Mixon. You don't think that affect the locker room, the players? The players loved him. So, you don't think that's going to affect? It had an effect. So I'm going to put it on front office more than anything and say, you did those things. You didn't spend the money. You rolled over cap space. It felt like you had cap space. Oh, and then you traded a 7th-round pick for a running back at the deadline and did nothing else. The vibes were ruined by the front office in a lot of ways. The talent was ruined. The roster was ruined. They did a poor job. It's a different game when you're in the front of the line or in the back of the line, picking from draft prospects and with tighter money in free agency. And the Bengals failed that process once again. Next up from John Mills, and he asks, what's the positive upside or outlook for Chase Brown and Andre Iosivas? Number one, I'll start with Chase Brown. I think Brown is good. I think he's playing very, very well. I think he has made the Bengals run game a better fit. I think he has given them a 3-down back that they didn't have. So I'm very happy with Chase Brown right now. I do think they need a number 2, clearly. They have no depth. It's probably the weakest depth in the entire league for running back. So we'll see what they do in the offseason for that. But just Chase Brown, I think he has the upside of an Austin Eckler. And Austin Eckler was a very, very good player. Was he special? No, he was good, and we would take that, no doubt about it. That's if he hits everything. He's a little bit older as a prospect, so we'll see what type of longevity he has. He'll be 2 years left on his contract. We'll see what type of upside he can hit before we're moving on and figuring out what else we want to do at running back. But I mean, as of right now, he has an over 50% success rate. Only the Bengals' big running backs have ever had that. Corey Dillon, Rudy Johnson, Jeremy Hill, Joe Mixon. And I put Jeremy Hill in there because he had 2014 was a great year running the ball. And Garrison Hurst. So their best backs have been, since 1994, have been guys that hit over 50% success rate in rushing. And Chase Brown has done that. And I think he's still got more in the passing game. He has looked good in pass protection lately. So I'm very happy with him. And I think they've stumbled into potentially a running back 1, which is nice. And if not, I think at the very least he's this, which to me is what I see Jaylen Warren doing with the Steelers, where he just looks much better than Najee Harris. Whenever you watch the Steelers offense, when we get to see it this week, you're going to see Najee just plotting, getting his 3.8 to 4.2 yards per carry and his 40% success rate. And you're just going to be like, that. There's just nothing there with Najee Harris. Yeah, he's big. Yeah, he's physical. Yeah, he's tough to bring down. He can catch all those things, but there's just nothing fun about Najee. And then you see Jaylen Warren, and he scares you a little bit. And I think that's at least what Chase Brown is to defenses. Now, Andre Iosivas, we wondered, could he have the upside of a number 2? And could he be the replacement for T. Higgins? I would say after almost 2 years now, we'll see what over the last 6 weeks. I would say no, he doesn't have that upside. And I would have said that after he was drafted. Remember, guys, he's a 6th-round pick out of Princeton with a low production profile, right, in a lot of ways. So unlikely to do that. Now, can he be a suitable number 3? His numbers look better than Tyler Boyd's in comparison to Boyd in Tennessee. Now, Boyd's working with the worst quarterback, so I get it. Did the Bengals make an upgrade there? You could say they got more explosive and faster and got down the field a little bit better, but lost a little bit of that consistency and trust that Boyd and Burrow had together. But can Yoshi take another step there? Of course he can, with more experience and more time. I think he can be a capable number 3 type receiver. It probably more depends on the number 2 then. Is Jermaine Burton your number 2 long-term? Then you're fine if he's good, if Burton's good. If Burton's still inconsistent and weird, then you're probably going to want to upgrade one of the 2 out of Yoshi and Burton. And that leaves you in a tough scenario. So at the very least, I think he's a wide receiver 4 that can play every spot. On the high end, I think he's a wide receiver 3 that's got some size and a little bit of vertical speed. And I think we would take that. So it's 2 day 3 picks where the Bengals haven't hit a lot at all. 2 day 3 picks from last year's class, as of now, seem to be hits. Next question up from Dizzle Rules. If I was handed the keys to the front office or the organization, what would be my first order of change? What would I do? And then I'm going to pair another question in with this later. And Dizzle rightfully assumes it would be front office in terms of scouting changes. And that's, if you're asking me, that's what it would be. I think they could do a lot more. This is a team that relies on, let's say I go in there and they're like, yeah, we can't generate more money. We can't spend more money. This is what it is. Can you do it? Can you do this job? What do you need? I would say, okay, we need an analytics department and we need a bigger scouting staff. And I need to marry the 2 of them together. And the reason I would do this is because I would want every single advantage possible. The numbers work. The numbers can help you. They can help guide you. I've done this quite a few times, and I'm going to do it again as a project and show you what I would basically present to them in the offseason when we get to draft time. But basically it's, hey, here's the Bengals board, whatever it may be. I would keep them separate. I would say, guys, use the scouts, The coaches, they're going to evaluate as they're supposed to. We're going to get together and we're going to figure out who we like between them. But also, once you get to that point and you've built your board, I'm going to bring in the data-driven board from the analytics team. And we're going to balance out and checks and balance your board. And we're going to say, yeah, you may like that guy, but the data is scary on him. We shouldn't touch him. His pass rush win rate would not go in the first round. It's not worth the risk. There's guys in the second and third round with better pass rush win rates that project to be better pass rushers in the NFL. So let's not take that guy. We're just going to eliminate him off the board. And then we're also going to take the consensus rankings from all the draft media and all the draft information out there and all the mock drafts you can compile. And why are we going to do this? Because it will lead you at least in the right directions for checks and balances. And I'm going to say, okay, you may like Drew Sample a lot, but you have him about 3 rounds higher than anyone else on the consensus. And because of that, we can't take him in round 2. He can't be on your board. You may really like him, but if consensus says 5th round, you can have him in the 4th. We'll compromise. So number 1, does the data support it? Yes or no? Yes, then we're good. No, we're going to drop him off the board or maybe eliminate him off the board. And then we're going to say, what's the consensus say versus your rankings? And if all 3 line up, if you've got them rated really high, let's say Creed Humphrey, Sam Cosmi, 2 guys the Bengals may have liked, the consensus also has them as top 40 picks. The data, the analytics board says, yes, take those guys in the top, actually said in ours, take them top 22. I think Sam Cosmi is 22 on our board. If it says that, and all 3, we can turn all 3 keys, then those are the picks. Those are the board. Those are the guys we're choosing from. And if we miss on a guy that's on all 3, it happens. Joseph Osai would be an example. He would have been the best player available based on the consensus. The data really liked him, and the Bengals really liked him in the top of the 3rd round. Guess what? Sometimes it doesn't work. At least you had a plan. At least all the cards were on the table and everyone agreed that that would be the right pick. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Fine. But when you go ahead and say, yeah, we're going to take Jackson Carman, and nobody else has that, nobody else thinks that, you're smarter than everybody else, and it doesn't work, well, that's on you guys completely. And that you don't want that feeling. You want everyone to be involved and turn the key on it. And you want the entire organization to have one vision. How are we going to play him too? That's where the coaches are coming in, right? Dax Hill, you guys like him on tape. Scouts like him. Analytics like him. Consensus likes him. Coaches, where are we playing him? What's the plan for him? We can all agree, then we're moving on and we're taking him. If not, we don't take him. Simple. So that rolls into the next question here that somebody had, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but it's a good question by Kel to wonder, what's the best way to restructure the scouting department? That's how I would handle it. Next one from Bengelman Brothers, wondering what's the future look like at defensive end for the Bengals. You have Trey Hendrickson basically on his own, right? Making plays, as he puts it, the Castaway reference. And then Cam Sample's hurt. He's a free agent. Joseph Osai is playing the second most, it seems like, lately, but he's a free agent. Sam Hubbard, I expect him to be cut. It feels like a farewell tour with him. And then Myles Murphy, we got to figure out over the last 6 weeks what he can do. So as of now, next year, it's Trey Hendrickson, angry about his last year of his contract, presumably, maybe retiring, maybe threaten to retire again or get traded. And then Myles Murphy, who you have no idea. And I can see him bringing back Cam Sample for cheap. So that makes sense. But that is not enough. If you think this is a championship team, or you want them to be, and they want to be, that's not enough. And we could be looking at a first-round pick at defensive end, right? So I think you're looking at free agents, veterans, trying to get someone in, trying to get competition in here. You might need 2 other guys, to be honest. Even with Cam Sample and Myles Murphy, you're probably going to want to bring in 2 veterans, maybe a low-end guy, and then one guy that can start. But you're not in great shape, because then you got to worry about still Hendrickson and his future and how long he's going to be here. I would just extend him. He's still good. I think he still will be good for at least 2 to 3 years. So add 1 year on, add 2 years on, whatever. That would be a priority of mine to get it done and reduce his cap hit this time, unlike last time. Kick some of this money down into the future. From Ken Molnar, which one of the young prospects do we expect to make the biggest impact post-bye? Well, I've talked about Murphy a lot. I hope it's Myles Murphy. That would be a big boost to the defense in the future. But if I'm going to be honest, I think it's Chase Brown. They don't have anyone else there. Maybe we'll see a little bit more Herbert after the bye week, but still, I think Brown has played well. I think he's on pace, or I'd like to see him eclipse that 1,000 yards. He's on pace to end up with like 970. Let's get him over that 1,000-yard mark and make this season at least memorable for him. And not that it isn't, but get 1,000 yards is still worth something. That's still valuable. I think it'll be Chase Brown. I think you got a lot of young guys, though. Hopefully it's Jermaine Burton, right? We need a lot more out of Burton. I think was one of the questions I'm probably not going to get to today, but you got to see what you got there because you got to make the same decision like we're talking about with Hendrickson. What do you do at the end? What do you do at receiver? We talked about Yoshi. We need to see Burton these final few weeks. Can we see Burton, Higgins, and Chase on the field together? And can we get Burton to get his mind right and make these plays when the ball comes at him? That would be nice. That's how you carry this offense to new heights if you get Chase Brown to play his fullest and you get Burton to make an impact as wide receiver 3. I'd like to see it before it's too late and we never see that trio together. Next question is from another subscriber, SW, my guy. Question on Cam Taylor Brit. Have we seen a drop off on a player at this level before? And more so philosophical questions after that. How do we reconcile a good prospect that doesn't get developed versus a bad prospect that doesn't get developed? How do we know these things? I can go through my process on that. And I think I try to look at, I think every evaluator probably feels this way. They like the prospect. They feel confident in that pre-draft. And if he doesn't develop and turn into a good player, it was injuries or it was coaching or development or whatever the case may be. And sometimes that is true. But it's definitely not the evaluator's fault when players don't work out. It's nature of the business, right? It's opinion based. But I try to do mine with more than just opinion. I try to balance it with the consensus of all the other guys out there that do this stuff and use the data and the analytics that have predictive value in pointing to which players can translate from college to the NFL and what traits typically translate. So when they have these things and have all of those things, and the coaches can't develop them, I think like Joseph Osai, maybe the injuries there, maybe that was the factor that led to him not developing. But when I look at that, I blame the coaches. When a guy doesn't develop that I didn't think was a good prospect, like Jackson Carman, I tend to say, not the coach's fault. He was not a good prospect. You're taking a shot in the dark to see if you can land that. It's not good. I didn't think Billy Price was good. So you go back to back with those year picks. And then Jonah Williams was being the guy, if we want to go back in a year before that, and he got hurt his rookie year. So maybe that's part of it. Cam Taylor Brit also dealt with injuries the first 2 years of his career. Now we are in year 3. He's actually healthy this year. And he's fallen off. Have we seen something like that before? Yes, actually. The Bengals drafted a corner in William Jackson, I want to say 2017, 2016. And his profile, his prospect profile coming out was the consensus really liked him. The tape liked him. Tremendous ball skills. Some of the best ball skills I've ever seen. The data was okay on him. Said he should be a long-term starter, maybe not a perennial Pro Bowler, which is fine for the back half of the first round. He missed his entire rookie year. Talk about development. Second year was fantastic. He was so good in coverage that year too. One of the best coverage seasons the Bengals have ever had in modern history. Tremendous. And then falls off there. It was okay, inconsistent for his time left in Cincinnati. Went on to Washington, didn't do anything there, was cut quickly or traded. I can't remember. Had a stint with the Steelers, and that was it. Turns out he was weird, didn't really care about football. And maybe that was the money. Maybe it was the Bengals. Who knows what did it in. But never worked out. And Cam Taylor Brit was a fine prospect, second-round pick. Good length, bulk, captain, smart, fast. He was stiff, a little inconsistent with his feet, with his hand usage, but could tackle also. Powerful player. Some thought he might be a safety. But he dealt with injuries first 2 years, played really well, looked on the cusp of maybe getting a Pro Bowl. High-end flash plays have been fantastic for him. And then, bam, now he's fighting for his job. 6 games ago, he's fighting for his NFL career at this point. If he can't rebound in this final stretch of games, the Bengals are probably going to have to look for a replacement. Or maybe they don't because they're the Bengals and they just roll with Cam Taylor Brit like, he'll be better. That seems Bengal-like. But that's not Cam Taylor Brit this year. That's a skinwalker. Somebody's in his body. The Monstars came and stole his talent. Come on, Cam. We need you these last 6 weeks to do something. Moving on to the next question. Next question, last question from Wahoo's Kendall. He wants me to imagine if there's a expansion draft this summer and the Bengals have to make available 6 players that are under contract next year that are active roster type players. And so they'd probably be on the roster this year in 2024, still under contract for 2025 because it's before the draft, it's before free agency. And you got to pick 6 of them. So we're going off the bottom of the roster list, guys that are on 2025. I got the roster pulled up here. Who's under contract for next year? Just off the bottom few, we're looking at Charlie Jones, Tyson Anderson, Jermaine Burton, Chase Brown, Andre Osubash, McKinley Jackson, DJ Ivey, Jake Browning, Josh Newton, Tanner McLaughlin, Eric All, Cedric Johnson, Dejon Anthony, Matt Lee, Mayama, John Meta, Lance Robinson, and Isaiah Williams. Well, a few of those guys I'm not getting rid of, right? How about Charlie Jones? Maybe offer him. Maybe that's the best guy I offer. Lance Robinson, Isaiah Williams. That makes it easy. Let's go Tanner McLaughlin and DJ Ivey. This last one is tough then. Would you rather keep Cedric Johnson or Dejon Anthony? I'm going to say give me Dejon Anthony. Cedric Johnson, you're offered up. Now, there's usually other rules than that. Like 2 of them have to be 2 or 3 year plus level players. Like they've had to have been on the roster or been in the league for a few years. And if that happens, maybe that's when you offer up Cam, Taylor Brit. I would offer up Geno Stone, Drew Sample. So like if I have to have that, and some leagues do that, and some, remember when the Texans did this? We should rewind one of these days in the offseason and see how the Bengals handled it then. But you'd have to think about guys like Sheldon Rankins, right? Alex Kappa, Geno Stone, Drew Sample, guys you're not worried about getting rid of, Zach Moss maybe, and go from there. And if that's the case, then I'd probably tread those waters if I have to give up veterans. But if not, I'm going to the bottom of the roster and going that way. That's a great question, though. This has been Bengals on the Brain, episode 130, presented by First Star Logistics. My partners, guys, take care of me. They take care of you when you retweet the tweets for the giveaways on Twitter, on X, whatever you call it. And watch the Jake and Joe postgame show to get in on the giveaways. They're there to support you and make sure we still have a good time during this season. It is what it is, right? Till next time, Hooday.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.